Alex and Jamie had been inseparable since their days in elementary school. Their bond had survived college, jobs, relationships, and the never-ending demands of adulthood. But amidst the whirlwind of their lives, they had managed to keep a tradition alive, a yearly camping trip, just the two of them, away from the city's relentless pace. This year's choice was a secluded forest, miles away from the nearest village. The woods, dense and unyielding, were said to offer the most pristine camping spots. Alex had found it in an old camping guidebook, with the promise of a genuine experience away from tourist trappings. Upon arrival, Jamie couldn't help but whistle in admiration. This is surreal, Al." Alex grinned, looking up at the towering trees and taking in a deep breath of fresh forest air. "Told you. This is our personal paradise for the weekend." They soon found a picturesque clearing surrounded by tall, whispering pines, and decided it would be their campsite. With practiced ease, they set up their tent, made a fire pit, and started gathering wood. As night approached, they sat around the campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows upon their faces. They roasted marshmallows, shared stories from their past, and discussed plans for the future. The world beyond the forest seemed far away, almost non-existent. At one point, as Jamie strummed an old guitar, Alex's gaze wandered to the dense tree line. He squinted, thinking he saw a silhouette standing there, observing them. "Jamie, do you see that?" he whispered, pointing subtly. Jamie paused his strumming, looking in the direction Alex pointed to. After a moment, he chuckled. "It's probably just a deer or something, buddy. Relax." But Alex wasn't so sure. The shape seemed too tall, too upright. But before he could say anything more, a cloud drifted over the moon, enveloping the forest in deeper darkness. When the moon reappeared, the silhouette was gone. Trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, Alex rejoined the conversation, but as they laughed and sang under the starry sky, an unseen pair of eyes continued to watch them from the shadows. The dawn chorus greeted the two campers as they stirred from their sleep. Jamie, always the early riser, was already up, attempting to rekindle the campfire. Alex groggily stepped out of the tent, stretching and taking in the serene beauty of the forest bathed in soft morning light. "Sleep well?" Jamie asked, glancing up. Mostly," Alex replied, the memory of the silhouette from the night before briefly flitting across his mind. "You?" Jamie yawned. "Like a baby. Except for when you snored. Sounded like a chainsaw." Alex laughed, playfully swatting Jamie's arm. "You always say that. I do not snore." Their playful banter was interrupted when Alex went to retrieve their food supply. He found the bags scattered around, their contents spilled. Cans were opened, packages torn, and some of their food missing altogether. "Hey Jamie, did you go through our food last night?" Alex called out, examining the mess. Jamie walked over, a frown forming on his face. "Why would I do that? I packed them neatly." The two stared at the disarray, a growing sense of unease settling between them. "Maybe it was a raccoon or something," Jamie suggested, though the tone of his voice suggested he wasn't convinced. Before Alex could reply, he caught something from the corner of his eye. Just beyond their campsite, the ground was disturbed. Curious, he approached and soon realized it was a pit, camouflaged by leaves and twigs. It wasn't very deep, but it was enough to sprain an ankle. "Jamie," he called, voice urgent, "look at this." Jamie, alarmed by Alex's tone, joined him, and his face paled as he took in the sight. That's a trap. But for what?" Looking around, they found more. Snares hidden in the grass, tripwires barely visible between trees, and tin cans strung up to act as alarms. "This isn't wildlife," Alex murmured, a chill running down his spine. "Someone set these up." The two friends exchanged a worried glance. The untouched beauty of the forest suddenly felt threatening. The once inviting clearing now felt like a stage, and they were unwilling actors in a sinister play. Alex remembered the silhouette he had seen the previous night. I think we're not alone here. Gathering their wits, they decided to stay alert and explore the surroundings further. But with every step they took, they couldn't shake off the unnerving feeling that they were being observed. The forest, with its dappled sunlight and rustling leaves, seemed to be hiding secrets they were yet to uncover. The dense canopy above filtered the sunlight, casting a greenish hue over everything. Alex and Jamie moved cautiously, their senses heightened and their steps deliberate. "We need to find a way out," Jamie whispered, his eyes darting around. "If someone went through the trouble of setting those traps, I don't want to be here when they return." Alex nodded, recalling the trail markers they'd set up the previous day. "We marked our path, remember? We should find those and follow them back." But as they retraced their steps, something seemed off. The stacked stones Alex had meticulously placed at intervals were knocked over, and the ribbons Jamie had tied to the branches were either removed or relocated to different trees. "We've been doing this for years, Al," Jamie said, panic edging his voice. "How can we be lost?" Alex tried to sound optimistic, though he shared Jamie's growing fear. "We've still got daylight. We'll figure this out." Hours seemed to pass as they wandered, but every path looked eerily similar, every tree a repetitive sentinel. At one point, they came across a stream they didn't remember crossing before. They followed it, hoping it would lead to a larger water source or maybe a trail. However, their hopes were dashed when they stumbled upon another campsite, or what looked to be the remains of one. A tattered tent, long abandoned, and the remnants of a fire pit sat as silent witnesses to previous campers. Strangely, scattered around the site were personal belongings, a rusted pocket knife, a torn map, and a journal with pages too weathered to read. "What happened here?" Jamie wondered aloud, picking up the journal. "I don't know," Alex replied, "but this doesn't feel right." The sun was beginning to dip below the trees, casting long, foreboding shadows. The friends felt an urgency to find their way out, or at the very least, a safe place to stay the night. They decided to leave the abandoned campsite behind, but the feeling that they weren't alone, that they were being watched, grew stronger. As they moved further into the forest, a distant sound reached their ears, a faint metallic rattle, like the sound of tin cans being shaken. "Is that one of our alarms?" Jamie asked. Before Alex could answer, a twig snapped behind them. They turned sharply but saw nothing. Still, the weight of unseen eyes upon them was undeniable. "We need to go," Alex whispered, his voice urgent. "Now." With the chilling rattle echoing behind them and the ominous weight of the forest pressing in, the two friends hastened their steps, hoping to find refuge before night fully claimed the woods. The forest grew darker and more impenetrable with each passing moment. The haunting echoes of the rattling cans grew fainter, replaced by the eerie sounds of the nocturnal forest creatures. Every rustle of leaves, every distant hoot, seemed amplified in the thickening silence. "We can't keep wandering aimlessly," Jamie said, his voice betraying his fatigue. "It's just making us easier targets." Alex nodded, pausing to catch his breath. "We need a plan, and fast." Surveying their surroundings, Jamie spotted a tall, sturdy tree with branches that seemed easy enough to climb. "We can climb up there," he suggested, pointing. "It'll give us a vantage point. Maybe we can spot a trail or a road. At the very least, we'd be off the ground and harder to reach." With no other options, the two started the ascent. Their tired limbs protested with every grip and pull, but fear fueled their resolve. Reaching a sturdy branch, they settled in, finding relative comfort amidst the leaves. The height provided a slightly clearer view, though the dense forest made it challenging to discern any definite paths. For a moment, they found solace in the tree's embrace, the wind rustling the leaves around them, the forest's heartbeat resonating with their own. But the respite was short-lived. Below, soft whispers slithered up to them, too indistinct to make out words but clear enough to confirm they weren't alone. Shadows flitted between the trees, figures barely discernible, moving with purposeful intent. Alex held a finger to his lips, signalling Jamie to remain silent. They watched, breaths held, as the figures seemed to search the area. One of them, a tall figure draped in tattered clothing, paused right beneath their tree. The face was obscured in the shadow, but the intent was clear. After what seemed like an eternity, the figures moved on, their whispers becoming more distant. Alex and Jamie waited, ensuring they were truly alone before descending. "We need weapons," Jamie said, his voice low but determined. "Anything to defend ourselves." Using the remnants of their backpacks and the environment around them, they fashioned rudimentary weapons, sharp sticks, stone-tipped spears, and a sling using rubber bands from their supplies. Feeling slightly more prepared, they decided to set up their own traps. With the knowledge of the ones they had encountered earlier, they began creating snares, pitfalls, and alarms. The forest floor, once an intimidating maze, now became their strategic playground. They then found a small cave, offering the promise of shelter and concealment. As they settled in for the night, they hoped their traps would serve as both protection and a warning to whoever lurked in the shadows. The night was fraught with tension, but inside the cave, with the entrance secured and their makeshift weapons at the ready, the two friends found a momentary sense of security. They knew the coming dawn would bring new challenges, but together, they felt prepared to face them. The early morning light filtered through the cave entrance, signaling a new day. Jamie stirred first, his ears pricked up to any unusual sounds. With the initial coast clear, they cautiously emerged from their sanctuary. Their traps seemed undisturbed, but they took no chances and dismantled them, deciding it was best not to leave any trace behind. Alex, while picking up one of the tin can alarms, noticed footprints around it. They were large and seemed to suggest that whoever was trailing them had come close, assessed their handiwork, and had chosen to move on without triggering any of them. "We're dealing with someone who knows the forest," Alex murmured. Suddenly, Jamie's hand shot out, gripping Alex's arm. He pointed towards the ground where another set of prints became evident. But these were smaller, almost childlike. "There's more than one," Jamie whispered. The realization hit them hard. Their stalkers weren't acting alone. But who were they and what did they want? They decided to head in the direction opposite to the footprints, hoping to find a way out and possibly avoid another encounter. As they walked, they came across remnants of old campfires, abandoned tools, and more torn pages, possibly from the journal they had found earlier. Curiosity getting the better of him, Alex picked up one of the pages. The ink was smudged, but a few lines stood out. "They are watching us. We thought we were alone, but the forest has eyes. We tried to leave, but the paths twist and turn, always leading us back. The only way out is to understand them, to become one with the forest." Jamie peered over Alex's shoulder, his expression grim. "This place? It's like a trap itself, an endless maze." As they ventured deeper, they stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin, half hidden amongst the overgrowth. The structure looked ancient, the wood rotting and the roof caved in. But what caught their attention was the symbols etched all over the door and walls, strange markings that neither of them recognized. Taking a deep breath, they decided to explore the cabin. Inside, they found more personal belongings, a collection from various campers over the years, and in the center, a large faded map of the forest. As they studied it, a pattern became clear. The forest peaths weren't just random, they formed a design eerily resembling the symbols on the cabin's walls. I think the paths are a puzzle," Jamie mused. "And these symbols are the key." With renewed hope, they began to trace a route on the map using the symbols as guidance. The paths they had taken earlier suddenly made sense. They had been moving in circles, caught in the forest's deceptive snare. With the map in hand and the puzzle coming together, the two friends felt the first real hope since their ordeal began. The forest still held mysteries and threats, but they now had a possible way out. and they were determined to take it. With the map as their guide, Alex and Jamie navigated the forest's twisted paths with newfound determination. The symbols on the cabin walls, once mysterious, now provided essential clues, turning the deceptive trails into a decipherable labyrinth. However, the forest's inhabitants weren't about to let them go easily. As they advanced, the shadows seemed to close in, the whispers grew louder, and the sense of being watched intensified. But the friends pressed on, relying on their bond and the knowledge they had acquired. A fog began to roll in, reducing visibility and adding another layer of challenge. However, it also brought with it an unexpected advantage. The fog seemed to disorient their pursuers, making their movements more erratic and less coordinated. Drawing closer to what they believed was the forest's edge, the friends stumbled upon a clearing where several figures stood around a central stone with the same symbols etched onto it. The figures, cloaked and faceless, turned to the newcomers, their intent unclear. However, instead of an expected confrontation, one of the figures stepped forward, revealing an old, wrinkled face. The old man's eyes, though clouded with age, radiated wisdom and sadness. "You've deciphered the forest's riddle," he said, his voice raspy yet gentle. "You are the first in many years." Jamie, hesitating, asked, "Who are you? Why have you been watching us?" "We are the keepers of this forest," the old man replied. "Long ago, our ancestors sought to protect the forest from outsiders, creating paths that confuse and deter. But in doing so, they also trapped themselves, becoming one with the very thing they protected. We watch over the forest and its secrets." Alex, holding up the map, asked, "So, the traps, the stalking, was it to protect the forest from use?" The old man nodded. "In a way, yes, but also to test you, to see if you were worthy of discovering its secrets. The forest is old, alive in ways you can't imagine. It chooses who it reveals itself to." Realization dawned on Jamie. The journal, the abandoned campsites, they were all others who tried and failed to understand. The old man said, "Many enter, but few find their way out. The forest is selective. It chose you." With a gesture, he indicated a path leading out of the forest, now visible in the dissipating fog. "Go with the forest's blessing, but remember its mysteries and respect its boundaries." The two friends, overwhelmed but grateful, made their way out, the weight of the forest lifting with every step. As they reached the edge, they looked back one last time, the keepers and the central stone now hidden by the trees, as if they had never been there. The ordeal had changed them. The forest, with its enigmatic paths and silent guardians, had revealed its secrets, leaving them with a profound appreciation for the mysteries of nature. The sun, now high in the sky, warmed their faces as they left the forest's embrace, stepping into a world that seemed both familiar and entirely new. They knew they would never forget their time in the forest, its lessons forever etched in their memories.